My soul sickened, and I wept before the Lord, and for a time it seemed that the very heavens were clad in mourning. William Hyde.
Everything seemed black as ink. James Madison Fisher.
Some regret the death of the Mormon prophet. Our judgment is that he ought to have been dead 10 years ago. 3 cheers to the brave company who shot him to pieces. Reverend William G. Brownlow.
The death of Joel Smith will seal the fate of Mormonism. The Latter-day Saints have indeed come to the latter day. The New York Herald.
For never since the Son of God was slain has blood so noble flowed from human vein. Eliza R. Snow.
For 2 centuries, the name of Joseph Smith has been had for good and evil. He has been called a prophet, an impostor, and everything in between.
And will shout with the armies of heaven, Hosanna, Hosanna to God and the Lamb. Let glory to them.
As an author and poet, W. Phelps' impassioned lines articulated the essence of Joseph's teachings. 26 of the texts that appeared in the original hymn book were either written or adapted by him.
Your lyrics always stir me, William.
You're very kind. But I have come because I need your help. I feel I must write another hymn.
In the past, W. Phelps had given musical expression to many of the teachings of the man from humble beginnings in Vermont. Joseph and Lucy Max Smith had been married for almost 10 years when Joseph Jr. was born.
Joseph was our 3rd son. It is thought by some that I shall likely tell many remarkable incidents concerning his childhood. But in truth, nothing occurred during his early life except those trivial circumstances which are common to that state. Lucy Max Smith.
Joseph Sr. had farmed, taught school, and run a mercantile business. But despite hard work, the family struggled. One of the realities facing those who did not own property was the need for frequent moves, as rented farms were often sold out from under them. During 14 years, the Smiths moved 7 times.
In 1811, we moved to Lebanon, New Hampshire. We were greatly blessed in our labors, but this state of things did not long continue. Joseph one day screamed out with severe pain in his shoulder. The physician anointed the shoulder with bone liniment, but the pain remained as severe as ever. After 2 weeks of suffering, the doctor found that a large fever sore had gathered between the breast and shoulder. He immediately lanced it, upon which it discharged a full quart of matter. As soon as this sore discharged, the pain shot like lightning down his side into the marrow of his leg bone. His leg immediately began to swell, and he continued in the most excruciating pain for 2 weeks longer. His life would be in a shambles. You must not do this.
Lucy insisted the doctors save the leg.
Take his leg.
So 8-year-old Joseph endured the agony of experimental surgery, refusing alcohol to dull the pain and asking only to be held in his father's arms.
Joseph said, "Mother, I want you to leave the room, for I know you cannot bear to see me suffer so. Promise me that you will not stay. The Lord will help me, and I shall get through with it." I retired from the house in order to be out of hearing. surgeons commenced operating by boring into the bone of his leg, first on one side, then on the other, after which they broke it off with a pair of pincers. Thus they took away large pieces of bone.
For the next 3 years, Joseph used crutches and, to the end of his life, walked with a slight limp. In 1816, after 3 consecutive crop failures, the Smiths left New England and moved to western New York. They lived in the village of Palmyra for a year and a half while they saved for a down payment on a farm. Lucy painted and sold oil tablecloths. Joseph Sr. and the older boys hired out for work. By 1818, their efforts paid off. They entered a contract for a farm in nearby Manchester.
We worked hard to clear our place. 60 acres of heaviest timber I ever saw. William Smith.
Few details are known of Joseph's day-to-day life during these years. One, a brief reference to a fist fight with a grown man. It seems the man was about to whip his wife, and youthful Joseph intervened to protect the frightened woman.
Father and Mother spared no effort in teaching us the Christian religion. We always had family prayers and read the family Bible together since I can remember. When we boys saw Father feel for his specs, we knew it was time to get ready. William Smith.
There's no question Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy differed on religious beliefs. For example, Lucy had purchased a bench in the Presbyterian church, and so she was highly involved in that church. For Joseph Smith Sr., he stood away from that church. I think the reason is because he had had 7 visions, which we would probably call revelatory dreams, assuring him that the fullness of the gospel would be made known unto him.
Joseph seemed much less inclined to the perusal of books than our other children, but far more given to meditation and deep study. At the age of 14, an incident occurred which alarmed us greatly. Joseph was out one evening on an errand. Returning home, passing through the dooryard, a gun was fired across his pathway with the evident intent of shooting him. He sprang to the door, much frightened. We immediately went in search of the assassin. We found his tracks under a wagon and the balls which were discharged from his gun lodged in the head and neck of a cow. It was most perplexing.
In 1819, a religious revival swept the nation.
We will serve the Lord.
Many were concerned about the salvation of their souls and desirous of uniting with some church, but not decided as to the particular faith they should adopt.
That doctrine places responsibility
Joseph
on
became
God
considerably
and
troubled.
excuses man.
During this time, my mind was called up to serious reflection and great uneasiness.
Which of you would
Yet it was impossible for a person young as I was to come to any certain conclusion who was right and who was wrong. While in the midst of this war of words, I often asked myself, what is to be done? Which of all these parties is right, and how shall I know it? I was one day reading the Epistle of James. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Never did any passage of Scripture come with more power to the heart of man than this did at this time to mine. I reflected on it again and again, knowing that if any person needed wisdom,